Welcome to the next installment in my presentations on inexpensive digital cameras. Today we're going to look at the Fujifilm FinePix 4900. And this is more than an inexpensive digital camera. This is a groundbreaking vintage digital camera. This camera was introduced clear back in the year 2000, so well over 20 years ago. And at the time, in the year 2000, all serious photographers were still using film, and they were just waiting for this digital phase and digital craze to pass and maybe go the way of 110 film. Of course, that didn't happen. And Fujifilm, even though their name has the word film in it, were pioneers in the digital camera industry, and they remain a major force in digital photography and continue to introduce innovative and groundbreaking cameras. This camera was described in reviews at the time as being futuristic, groundbreaking, sleek, and it was all of those things. And if you look at this camera today, over 20 years later, it's not that much different than digital cameras you can buy today. It looks the same, handles the same, and it's similar. And Fujifilm was trying to bring over film users, and so they designed this camera to be similar in the way it handles to a film SLR. The controls, the knobs, all look a lot like knobs you'd find on single lens reflex film cameras around the year 2000. Now, that being said, there are some things that do really date this camera. The screen size is pretty small, and the resolution on the screen is not great. The electronic viewfinder is not too good. It's usable, but they've come a long way with electronic viewfinders. Also, the camera uses the now obsolete smart media cards. Now, if you're not familiar with smart media memory cards, they look a little like a very small, really old floppy disk. And these cards are still available. You can get them on eBay. I don't think they're making them anymore, but there's a good aftermarket for them. And you can get them from 8 megabytes up to about 128 megabytes. I will say that these cards are in demand, and you may pay more for a 128 megabyte memory card than you pay for this entire camera. Fortunately, the 2.2 megapixel sensor doesn't require a lot of memory, so you can get away with a smaller card. I'm using a 32 megabyte card, and I can get about 20 pictures on that card. So if you really like the camera, you can pay up for more memory storage, but you can get by with an inexpensive 32 megabyte card. What we're going to do today is take a closer look at this camera, take some pictures with it, see how it performs, decide if you want to add one of these to your digital camera collection. We'll also discuss what you probably have to pay to get one of these. So stay tuned. We're looking at the Fujifilm FinePix 4900. The Fujifilm FinePix S4900 was a futuristic camera in its day. As you can see, it's a good-looking camera. It was lightweight, it was easy to handle, and Fujifilm tried to woo traditional film photographers with this camera by setting the dials and controls to be very similar to those that you could get in film SLRs that were available at the time. If you look at the control dial, you'll note that you can use many of the same features that you could use on your traditional film SLR. You had a dial that gave you shutter priority, aperture priority, program auto features, and of course you could use this camera in a completely manual setting. The dial also gave you the option for just using an auto setting where the camera would pick all of the settings, and a scene position setting where you could set it up for specific scenes that you were looking for. You'll also note that the camera did have some video capability. Now I'm going to say I'm going to show some video from this camera, and it's not a camera you want to use for video. Handheld video, digital cameras at the time really looked dated by today's standards. So I'll show you some video I took, but you're not going to want to use this camera for video. Fujifilm attempted to make this camera very easy to use, and if you look on the side of the camera, you can see here that you have the zoom mode. You can just, with a toggle switch, zoom in and out. It also has a autofocus and manual focus setting on the side of the camera, and on the lens there's a focusing ring, so that also is similar to traditional film cameras where you focus on the lens. So I think Fujifilm was successful in thinking this out and trying to really bring over film users. The camera also has a pop-up onboard flash, and it's just a very intuitive and easy camera to use. The lens on this camera is a Fujinon EBC, which stands for electronic beam coating, which is a throwback to the old Fujifilm lenses from the film era. And it's got a zoom length of 7.8 to 46.8 millimeters. And to put this in terms of a standard 35 millimeter format camera, that would be a 35 to 210 millimeter zoom lens. And this may be one of the drawbacks for this camera. That's not quite long enough for good wildlife shots. And because it's got a small sensor, only 2.2 megapixel sensor, you can't really do a lot of heavy cropping without the pictures getting very grainy. So it's not that great for wildlife shots. I'll take a few photos with it and try to get some wildlife shots in, but it's difficult. Now, if you're going to purchase one of these cameras, they're not expensive at all. You can get them for under $30 on auction sites, eBay, other auction sites. You can find them for probably even less than that in thrift stores, secondhand stores, estate sales. And as I said, if they don't come with a memory card, and usually there's a memory card still in them, you probably have to pay another $15 to $20 for a smart media card unless you want one of the larger ones. So you can get them for reasonably a good low price. Now, what I'm going to do now is show you a few pictures that I've taken with the camera, maybe show you some video. As I said, video is a real weakness of this camera. And then we'll be back to wrap this up. We've had the opportunity to look more closely at this Fujifilm FinePix 4900, and it's a great camera. In its time, it was a cutting-edge camera, and even to this day it can be used. There are some limitations, and it probably wouldn't be a camera you'd use on a daily basis, but it's similar enough to today's camera that it's easy to use and its functionality is intuitive. So it was a nice camera to add to your collection. It's fun to use, and it lets you know just how far digital cameras have come in the last 20 years, and also just how similar digital cameras are today to the pioneers in this industry. Thanks for watching.